Hello, my name is Brian Alvarez, and this is the argument for design for philosophy class. Just kind of a little background of what it is. It's kind of how the world is intricately designed, where everything has a purpose. You look at something even like how all the planets revolve around the sun, or magnetic field, or ozone layer, they all keep us safe. The argument for design argues that everything is so perfect, the world couldn't have come about by chance, and there's a designer, God, who created it. And it just kind of interests me because while this theory isn't why I believe in God, it's interesting to think about because of the probability of us getting here. And then just kind of, I thought about questions in class that I really wouldn't have thought of without discussing the argument for design. But kind of the claim is I believe the argument for design and science complement each other if you believe in God, which I'll kind of go further into. While science tells you how everything has led to this point, kind of how natural selection, right, or the Big Bang Theory has led the world to be where it's at, the probability of reaching this point in time with everything, with us evolved to the species we are slim to none. And the argument for design can answer how everything has lined up as perfectly as it has, and instead of occurring by chance, it was God instead. The arguments, this is from the book William Paley's argument. It was like finding a watch in a field and assuming that some person must have been there, and nor seeing the intricate design of the world and concluding that some intelligent creator must have made it. Professor Stidd kind of went into this where it was like, if you are walking on a beach and you find a watch, you're not going to assume that nature created it or that it came about naturally, but more that there was a third party that created it. And in this argument, it would be God in that sense. But kind of my argument that I could make for it was that while natural selection accounts for how species evolved, why are we the only ones able to interact with the environment the way that we do? Kind of how I discussed, we interact with the world, building buildings. We're the only species that can do it on the level that we do. And the world just works together perfectly in unison. And even though like science might explain that, the chance and the probability of that is, like I already said, slim to none. So kind of the argument for design answers that question because in it, the world didn't get created by chance, but by God instead. So it kind of just removes the chance and the probability, and it just replaces it with God. So actually, I'll kind of how science, right? Even science like explains what it does. Like God kind of created science to work the way that it does, if that makes any sense. But some of the modern applications are with regards to pollution and humans ruining the environment. We're destroying the design in question. So I mean, who knows? Maybe years or generations down the line, there's not going to be a design to discuss about really, because ice caps are melting, right, and we're destroying the ozone layer. But the question of whether God is real and why people should believe has always been a relevant issue, and this is an aspect of that argument. As humans, we've also always tried to strive to understand more of the world, and this argument kind of attempts to explain that as to why the world is the way that it is, right? And just in conclusion, I don't believe it to be a sophisticated theory that ends the discussion between there is and isn't God. It certainly isn't the one of why I believe in God, but I do believe it's interesting to think about because questions that at least I wouldn't have thought of. Without discussing the argument for design, I wouldn't have, I wouldn't have thought of, right? Kind of how, just like the probability aspect. And that's why I think they kind of complement each other, right? Because it's like, even though science explains why, with this argument, you can kind of say God is, instead of the probability in it occurring by chance naturally, God was the one who kind of pushed science to go the way that it has.